guys, trust you all very well. Friday morning, beautiful day as you can see, and I'd love to quickly share something with you that I think is very key for us as men at the moment, just the time that we're finding ourselves in as well, where the Lord has placed leaders around us and leadership among us and around us that He calls for us to follow, that He calls for us to trust and give our lives to. And one of the things that I'm so aware of in the time that we live in today is that the world system tells us that each one of us know best. Each one of us are sort of like the master of our own destinies, and I don't know if you'll agree with me when I say that this is not actually true. God has placed authority over us and above us and in our lives to help us, to lead us, to guide us, to bring us into the more of God, into more of what He's got for us. And I really want to look at that this morning for us as men who serve God to respond in a way that is Christ-like, that is godly, rather than looking after our own interests and the things that we think are better and are good. And I want to look at an example here of Aaron and Miriam, who actually spoke out against God's anointed, God's leader, which was Moses at the time. And you see, once again, for us in the world today, for those in the world today, the system that we sort of surrounded by, often we are all, we might have this inclination or this feeling that, you know what, why does he always seem to know what's best? Surely I also know what is best. But the thing is, in the kingdom, God has placed leaders around us to help us navigate our way through different scenarios and different situations. And I want to look at a story with you quickly. And in Numbers 12 verse 2, we read that it says, "Has the Lord," this is Miriam speaking, "has the Lord spoken only through Moses?" They asked. "Hasn't He also spoken through us?" And then it says that the Lord heard this. And what happened after that is God actually called them, the three of them, not only Miriam and Aaron, actually Moses as well, called them out of their tents into a public place and rebuked them publicly. He then carried on to say, and he said, he started speaking. He said, "Well, when I speak to the prophets, I speak to them in parables. When I speak to different people, I speak to them in pictures and in different ways. But with Moses, I speak face to face." So God actually comes and rebukes Aaron and Miriam publicly and very strongly. We then see that Miriam was actually disciplined in that time, where she has to go sit outside the camp for 7 days until the people can move forward. And I want to point you to a few very important things here quickly. This is in Numbers 12, if you remember me saying that just now. So one of the things that happened, which is quite significant, is two people went against the leader that God put in place. They spoke up. They said, "Well, certainly we also know, God also speaks to us." And what happened was God rebuked them publicly, okay, because it's His leadership that was put in place. Secondly, what happened was that the pillar of cloud which appeared, which was God, His presence, removed Himself from them, from their presence, and went in a far distance from them, okay. That's just the second thing that happened. The third thing that happened was that the people of God did not move forward in moving towards the promised land until Miriam's discipline was over. So I want us just to point to three specific things here very quickly. God says in Psalm 133 verse 1, it says that how pleasing it is for us to dwell in perfect unity, in harmony with one another. And then it says at the end, there's a sense of what David writes in the Psalms. There's a sense of when this happens, when there's perfect unity, God commands His blessing. He commands His presence to be among us. He commands His Spirit to guide us. And in this sense, what we see is that there was a rebuke of the Lord that came against those that spoke against God's leaders, and the people could not move forward. Very interestingly, in Numbers 13, the very next chapter, we read how God spoke to Moses to send 12 spies into the promised land. And they had to go out and scout the land and come back with reports. And obviously you guys all know the story. They came back with reports. Two of the 12 had good reports. They had good things to say about this promised land, but the other 10 started spreading bad rumors about this promised land. And the rest of the story, you know, obviously Caleb was one of them, Joshua was one of them, and their descendants actually ended up inheriting the promised land. But those that spoke against, those that started sowing division among the people, never saw the promised land. Now I wonder, if we look at this, how much of the 10 that came back and spread bad rumors, how much of that was as a cause of the seed that was sown by the other 2 leaders just before that, by other leaders that actually spoke against God's anointed, God's leader, and all of a sudden it was like it was among the people, and once again there wasn't unity among the people, which actually caused them in the end to not inherit and take the promised land. So my challenge to you this morning as men and as leaders is, guys, we have to honor those that have been placed among us. We have to firstly honor one another with a life, with a love like Christ. We've got to lift one another up, encourage one another, honor one another, speak well of one another. We only speak what is upbuilding and encouraging. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we have to accept as men that God has placed authority over us. Firstly, the authority of our country. As men, as Christian men, we have to honor the government and the authority that's been placed over us. We are absolutely in so much temptation to stretch boundaries, especially at the moment where we are frustrated, we want to get out, we want to do certain things. And I want to charge you guys this morning that we honor the authority that's been placed above us. We honor those that have been put over us, whether they're saved or not saved. God does not make a distinction. He says we need to honor the authority that He's placed over us. And then thirdly, which is also very important, within the church life, we have leaders that have been placed over us, elders to direct the affairs of the church, apostolic gifting that speaks into the life of the church, and we have to honor those men that God has appointed and anointed to do what only they can do, the gift that He's given them to do. Now you and I have to follow Christ for ourselves, but we have to also follow the leaders that have been placed over us. And I know that if we do this properly and correctly, we will inherit the promised land whenever, however, and wherever that is for us. But let's remain in unity as we honor those that the Lord has placed over us. I want to encourage you guys to do that. I want to encourage you to trust, even when it's difficult, the men and women that are around us, and the men that God has placed in our lives to lead us. I hope you guys are blessed by this, and I hope that you're encouraged by this as well. But right now, more than ever, unity within the church is so vitally important for us. We have to be in unity as we keep Christ as the center. Bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll chat again next week. Cheers.